If you've ever put on foundation and then immediately felt like it emphasized your skin texture, or you struggle with your concealer constantly creasing under your eyes, or you've gotten to that point where you finish your makeup, you look in the mirror and you go, wow, I actually think my skin looked better before I put any of this on, then this video is for you. Makeup can be your best friend or your worst enemy as your skin changes with age, so I have packed this video full of technique tips and my favorite makeup products to help make your skin look flawless no matter what stage of life you're in. I'm Dr. Sam Ellis, board-certified dermatologist, and your go-to for science-backed skincare advice. I help you decode your skin and find products that are actually going to work for you. So if you want glowing, healthy skin, hair, and nails without the guesswork, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you like this video because you are in the right place. And today, I'm going to walk you through my go-to products and techniques from skin prep all the way to finishing touches so that by the end you will have a great complexion routine to give your skin that beautiful lit from within look that doesn't look cakey or heavy and just enhances your natural beauty. Okay, part one, we need to go over skin prep because how you prepare your skin for makeup is everything. When you're younger and your skin has more collagen, it has fewer fine lines, the pores are usually a lot more refined, you can kind of get away with slapping some foundation on your face and being like, looks pretty decent. But as you get older and your skin has larger pores, more fine lines and creases to navigate, perhaps some areas of sensitivity or dryness, we really have to think about what's going under our foundation and under our concealer that's going to allow the makeup to sit the most evenly on the surface of our skin. And one of the easiest ways to get a smoother application of your foundation is to reduce the amount of hair that's on your face. So we all have what's called vellus hairs, also known as peach fuzz, on our skin. And when we're younger, having a little bit of fuzz is like no big deal because we don't have other forms of texture on our skin. But as we get older, when you layer the peach fuzz that's there over the enlarged pores and the sun damage, it just starts to create a really uneven landscape for which we want to apply makeup. So the easiest way to reduce texture in the skin immediately is to just shave all that peach fuzz off. And if you've never shaved your face, you might think I sound crazy right now, but you must try it. It's incredible for what it does to your skin and how your makeup sits on your skin. No, it does not make your hair grow back thicker or darker. Those are complete myths. I promise. I am a dermatologist and I also specialize in hair. It has none of those effects, but it will make your makeup go on so much more smoothly. If you want a tutorial on how to do this, I have two here on YouTube and they are very in-depth on how to prep your skin and how to take care of it afterward so you have the most successful shave. The other thing you need to think about when prepping your skin for makeup is making sure that it is properly hydrated and moisturized. You don't need a ton of stuff on your skin, and in fact, I think the more makeup you plan on applying, usually the more pared down your skincare underneath should be so that your makeup's not slipping and sliding over a ton of layers. But you do need something there that's going to cushion your skin and almost act as a buffer for the makeup so that it doesn't settle into any dry areas on your face. If I'm going out in the evening, I'm like a moisturizer and then straight to makeup gal. If during the day I plan on wearing like a slightly heavier face of makeup, I will do like my vitamin C serum, a moisturizer, sunscreen, which I'll get to Rex in a second, and then I put my makeup on. But my absolute go-to moisturizer, holy grail for makeup prep, is my Prequel Skin Half and Half Fluid Moisturizer. I am beyond obsessed with this. This is like if a mid-weight moisturizer and a milky toner had a love child. It is just such a beautiful, cushiony, liquidy texture, and I will usually take about 2 to 3 shakes and I will just rub it over my entire face and then really work it into the skin, including up under my eyes. I do not recommend eye cream under makeup because it usually prevents your concealer from fully setting down and can lead to creasing that should not happen or is preventable. So I love using this because it keeps the under eyes hydrated but allows your concealer to still set in place. If you don't have access to Prequel, something like the Rhode Glazing Milk would work really well here. And if you are super dry, then using some type of mid-weight moisturizer would be totally acceptable as well. And then of course, if we are wearing makeup during the day, we will be putting sunscreen underneath it. One tip I have is making sure that your moisturizer or any other layers you've put on are dried down before you go in with your sunscreen. And then 2, after you put your sunscreen on, you want to make sure that is completely dried down before you go in with your makeup. So I really recommend waiting at least 10 to 15 minutes for your sunscreen to settle before you layer on top of it. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but if your makeup that you're putting on, like your foundation, has SPF in it, you still need to put sunscreen underneath your makeup, because unless you are putting on like 2 thick finger lengths of foundation, which is what you would need to get the SPF that's on your foundation label, you are not getting enough sun protection from that makeup. So I will be talking about some makeup that has SPF in it because I love it, but I am not relying on that makeup for my sun protection. I am relying on my sunscreen underneath. And I did grab a few of my favorite sunscreens for under makeup. The first is the CL Prime and Protect SPF 30. This is a mineral sunscreen. I talked about this in like my favorite new SPFs video. CL is a makeup company. They're going to do a primer well, and this just sits so nicely. It's quite grippy without feeling sticky. So if you struggle with makeup kind of sliding around on your face, this might be worth a try. Another one that I absolutely love is the Haru Haru Wonder Black Rice Moisture Airy Fit Daily Sunscreen. This is an SPF 50 Korean sunscreen. I've spoken about this a lot. It has a very moisturized but skin-like finish, so there's no dewiness here, and makeup just sits so beautifully on top of it. And then if you have drier skin, or you find that your skin starts to look cakey under makeup like halfway through the day, you definitely want to be using something that's a little bit more hydrating or moisturizing. And that's where the Solar Shade from Prequel is particularly great. For my dry skinned beauties, you will love this under makeup. For most people, adequate moisturization and sometimes, the application of sunscreen is going to be enough to prep your skin for foundation. There are going to be a select group of people where primer is going to be helpful, particularly if you need your makeup to last all day long, or if you have really enlarged pores in the center part of your face, like around your nose, your cheeks, forehead, chin. Having a primer that helps fill in the pores in those areas can be helpful. My go-to is from e.l.f. This is their Power Grip Primer. It's quite sticky when you first take it out of the tube, and you just need the smallest amount. And I really only wear primer if I'm going to do like an all-day event or something, and I will just press it with my fingertips into the areas around my nose, my mid-cheek, forehead, chin. I will let that set for about 30 seconds or so, and then I'm ready to go in with foundation. Now, when it comes to foundation, I feel like this is where so many people go wrong or feel like their routine fails them. And although you can technically get away with using really matte or full coverage foundations when you have more mature skin, it is my recommendation that you lean towards things that have light to medium coverage and tend to have a slight glow or at least a skin-like finish. And I also want to remind you, the point of foundation is not to cover up every aspect of your skin. I think it actually looks so much better when you have a very thin, sheer layer of foundation on. And yeah, maybe you can see a few age spots through your foundation, but your skin still looks like skin. So just getting out of the headspace of I'm going to cover every flaw on my face and go more into the headspace of I'm going to give a sheer wash of color to my face to gently even the skin tone, you will just have such a better outcome. One of my absolute favorite foundations for any skin, including mature skin, is the CL Tint and Protect SPF 50. This is incredible. I know I've talked about it so many times, but it is that good. It's what I'm wearing in like 90% of my YouTube videos if I filmed them in the last year or so. And since I started recommending this I probably recommended it on Instagram first. I have had so many patients who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s come in and bring this in and be like, thank you for teaching me about this foundation. I have never liked the way foundation looked on my skin as a more mature adult until I tried this, and I just stand so firmly behind it. And I think one of the reasons it's so successful is that it's quite a liquidy texture, so it's very spreadable and it doesn't clump up on the skin. So it almost just feels like a liquidy moisturizer when you're applying it, but it has really solid coverage, so it doesn't get streaky when you apply it. And I just use my fingers. I will take maybe 3 to 4 drops. You do not need a lot. And I will start at the middle part of my face, which I always recommend because that's generally where you need the most coverage, because it's where you're gonna have the most redness and the most sun damage. And then I just work it with my fingers towards the periphery of my face. And the coverage is incredible. I can still see my skin through it, but I just love the way it sits on skin. If you don't powder this down, the finish on it is slightly glowy. I would call it more like radiant. And so I like to powder it just sort of in the middle parts of my face where I tend to get shiny. And I will definitely talk about powder application later in the video, because doing that correctly is also so key to having your makeup last and not look cakey or shiny throughout the day. The other thing I want to mention is that I do use 2 shades in this, and I mix them according to basically how tan or pale I am. It does not matter how incredible a formula is if you have the wrong shade. So one of my biggest tips is to get a couple shades if you don't have a perfect match and mix them accordingly. When you see a professional makeup artist work, they are never just grabbing something out of the bottle and putting it right on the model. They almost always are mixing in 1, 2, 3 other shades to get that perfect match, and that will make your makeup look so much better. Now, if you have oily skin or you live in a very humid climate, or you often need a more long wear foundation just based on the nature of what you're doing over the course of the day or the night, may I recommend the Maybelline Super Stay 24-Hour Skin Tint. This has basically replaced my Dior foundation because it is equally as beautiful and it doesn't have fragrance, which just gives it like an extra point for me. Through trial and error, I have found for me, this applies best with a brush, and I will generally buff it starting in the center of my face, working towards the periphery, and really work it into the skin. I just pick up a little bit at a time. And again, that's the key, working in layers. You can always go back in and add another layer of foundation in an area that you need more coverage, or you can maybe go in with concealer, but you can always add more rather than dropping your foundation right on your face or going in really heavy-handed. Just don't do that. Now, if you do find that your foundation is looking a little bit heavy, what I recommend doing is taking a damp beauty blender that's clean and just bouncing it over your skin. That's gonna help pick up some excess product, shear out whatever is on your face, and also help resolve any little streakiness that you may have. So it's nice to have one of those handy. So really, less is more when it comes to foundation. And I know this video is not about how you should take care of your skin long-term or cosmetic procedures. I have plenty of other videos on this channel about that, but it is a good reminder that if you're doing small things regularly to take care of your skin, whether it's with your skincare or doing things like light laser resurfacing, microneedling, small amounts of Botox so that your skin isn't constantly creasing and etching in lines and wrinkles, it does allow you to get away with using a lot less makeup, and it allows your makeup to just sit a lot more nicely on your face. And I have lots of patients who hate wearing makeup, and it's the whole reason they come into the office and do cosmetic procedures and take really good care of their skin so they can get away with less. So after your skin prep, after your foundation, that's when you take a step back and look at your face and go, okay, do I have any other areas of darkness or of color irregularity that I want to correct? And that's where concealer is going to come in. And particularly if you have dark under eyes, I recommend doing some type of color correction before you go in with your concealer, because if you just go in with your normal concealer that is your skin tone and you try to put it over blue or purple or very dark under eye circles, it's going to look a bit ashy and it's not actually going to match your skin tone and look natural. And when you think about what you're trying to do with color correction, you're trying to cancel out some of the tones. So if you have lots of blues and purples in your skin, we want to be canceling that out with the opposite color, which is going to be things that are in like the yellow, orange. We often describe these as salmon or peachy tones. And so for example, for my under eyes, I like to use something that's this color. And really the key with this is applying the sheerest amount. You do not need a thick layer of color corrector. You just need the tiniest bit, especially when we're thinking about under eyes. We want to be working in very, very sheer layers to get the smoothest possible application. The same goes for concealer. You should not be putting a big swath of product under your eye. I like to take a little dab kind of near my inner corner and near my outer corner, and then use a very densely bristled brush to blend and buff that in. We also want to stay away from the lower lash line. That's where all of our under eye wrinkles are going to converge. So there's no need to be emphasizing that. And that's often not where you have your discoloration anyway. And I have to give a shout out to this concealer. Now, there is no concealer in the world that is going to completely prevent your under eyes from creasing, but this is as close as I've gotten. This is the CeraCreole Face Flex. They call it Concealer and Complexion Enhancer. And this is so fantastic. I've recommended it a couple of times on my Instagram, and then I was immediately flooded with DMs being like, oh my gosh, I had not been able to find a concealer that I liked after I turned 35 and this is it. And I totally agree. I will never be without it. I have repurchased it. I have it in every makeup bag because it is just such a go-to now. I mainly use it in shade 3, which is basically like an exact complexion match for me most of the time. And yes, I use it as a concealer, but there are also days where I don't want to put on any type of foundation, but I want a little bit of coverage. So I will do all of my normal skincare, skin prep, and then I will just swipe this not only under my eyes, but a little bit on my forehead, my cheeks, my chin. Like that's actually what I do most days in clinic. And then I will just buff it in with a big brush, and it just helps make my complexion look more flawless without having any type of heavy layer. This is, I know I'm being effusive, but it really deserves it. And if you're not familiar with CeraCreal as a brand, it caters to women over 40. It is makeup designed with mature skin in mind, so it makes sense that they would make a concealer with all the properties that this has of being so stretchy and so flexible and just really moving with your face and respecting the texture that's there. Oh my gosh, this like sounds like an ad. It's not. I love it. Typically after I put on my concealer, that is when I go in with any other cream products that I'm going to be using, whether that's blush, bronzer, contour. I'm going to make a separate YouTube video with the proper placement and products when it comes to mature skin and those specific steps, because it is crucial and it deserves its own time and attention. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss when that comes up. But after all my cream products are in place, we must lock that in with setting powder. And this is a step that is so important because it allows our makeup to last over the course of the day. But I feel like it's also a place where a lot of people go wrong and then take their beautiful makeup that they've done and ruin it. First and foremost, we want to make sure we are using a loose setting powder, not a pressed powder in a compact. Loose setting powders are going to be more finely milled, and they're going to allow for a much lighter hand when it comes to application. And we want to be focusing this powder application on areas that are prone to creasing because we want to lock our makeup in place, or areas that are prone to oiliness because that can cause our makeup to break up. It can make us look shiny, and that's generally not the vibe we're going for. So application is going to be mainly focused on the under eyes, maybe the areas around the nose, and sometimes the chin. But before you go in and put that powder on and lock everything in place, you need to do a once over of your makeup and make sure no new creases have developed. So you just wanna dab your under eyes, whether it's with your finger, a dense brush, a damp beauty blender, and just dab out any creases. Same with around your nose, your smile lines, because we don't want to set creases in. We know it's inevitable that they will happen to some degree over the course of the day, but let's start with the best we possibly can. A couple of my favorite setting powders. One is by Kosas. It's their Cloud Set Translucent Candy Rose Ultra Transparent powder. The reason I like this so much is, aside from it being very, very finely milled and having just a little bit of a pink hue, which I feel like gives a really nice warm glow to the skin, is that it really is pore blurring. So if you struggle with pores, this really sets your pores and makes them a lot less noticeable. The other one I really love, I've used for over 10 years, and this is the mini, it goes with me when I travel, is by Laura Mercier. It's their Translucent Loose Setting Powder. This one is not tinted, but just incredibly sheer and makes for a very flawless application and finish. Now, the key with any loose setting powder is you don't want to just pack it on. I know there was an era where we used to bake and just really go heavy-handed with the powder, but I like light layers. If you're sensing a theme, light layers is the way to work for mature skin. So what I will do is I will pour a little bit of powder into the cap, and then I will take a densely bristled brush and I will swirl it in the powder and then tap off the extra. Swirl and tap, and I will actually be pressing that powder into the brush so that when I go and distribute it on my under eyes or on my mid face, I'm just getting the slightest but very even sprinkle of powder. Less is more. It will still work beautifully, but you're going to have a lot less cakiness. After you've locked in your main areas, I do recommend taking just a tiny bit more powder. I like to do this on a big fluffy brush and just doing a very, very light dusting over the rest of your face. That way, as the day goes on and your skin warms up the product and your products start to melt together, you do have just a very fine veil of powder in the periphery of your face so you don't get shiny and the makeup doesn't start to slip and slide on you. And the last step of sort of finishing off your makeup, and this is totally optional in my opinion, is whether or not you want to use some type of setting spray. To me, these really serve two purposes. One is to help lock your makeup in place, and two, it can really help melt your creams and powders together, especially if you have drier skin, and just give a more seamless finish. I can't even find a setting spray in my house right now to show you. That's how rarely I use them. But when I have my makeup professionally done, they almost always will use one. And probably the two that I have used on me the most are by Charlotte Tilbury, and then the one from One Size. Both of those do a really good job of just locking in your makeup. They have a very nice natural finish. They're not going to make you look too oily or too glowy. They're definitely not going to mattify you. So if you're in the market for a great setting spray, I have had success with both of those. And as a reminder, if you're wondering about the rest of the look, the blush, the bronzer, the eyes, the brows, the lips, and how we address that when it comes to mature skin, I am covering that in a future video that is coming up soon. I'm going to dive into the placement and the technique and the products to really lift and brighten your features and deal with other aspects of mature makeup that can really start to bug, like the feathering in your lip lines. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you don't miss it. If you found these tips helpful, hit like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments, what are some of your favorite base products? Of course, as always, I'm going to link all the products that I used in the description box. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a great time, and I will catch you next time.